Hi, boys and girls. I have a book to read to you that is a Christmas book that I think you are going to love. I actually found it and read it for the first time last year, and it is a beautiful story. The illustrations are fantastic, and the whole basis of the story is something you guys are going to really, really love. There is a sneak peek from somebody in this book who will be coming to visit you, friends, very soon. All right, so the name of the book is Grandfather's Christmas Camp. It was written by Mark McCutcheon and illustrated by Kate Keisler. And you can see here's the little girl and here's her grandfather. There are two main characters in this story. They're who the story is all about. And you can even tell they live somewhere where it's very cold because you can see all of this snow. They definitely don't live somewhere warm. And they're sitting by a fire in this front picture right here. So let's get started and see what happens in the story. And at the very end, I have a question for you that I'm going to have you answer for the activity today. All right, Grandfather's Christmas Camp. Grandfather's Christmas Camp. To Kara and Mackie, for Pa Dede, who always has known the lure of the woods. Grandfather and I can't find Mr. Biggins. We whistle for him out back. We shout for him in the meadow. Grandfather blows his alpenhorn, but Mr. Biggins doesn't come. Gone up to the mountain after deer again, Grandfather grumbles. I'll have to go fetch the old three-legged fool. He'll never make it back with this snow comin'. I want to go, Grandfather. On Christmas Eve? His eyes blaze at me. For a long time, he sizes me up. So he looks her up and down, trying to decide, can she go with him? Is she quite old enough yet? And then growls, want you dressed from head to toenail, Lizzie, and I don't want you belly aching or holding me up. Grandfather is big and leathery, and he doesn't like slowpokes. He's a mountain man. That's her and her grandfather in her grandfather's cabin right there. I wonder who Mr. Biggins could be. He says that three-legged fool. I wonder who he's talking about. I pull on 3 pairs of socks, long underwear, thick pants, boots, undershirt, shirt, sweatshirt, sweater, coat, hat, scarf, and mittens. She is all bundled up. Grandfather packs a backpack just in case. We clomp in our snowshoes through the old-growth forest, then up one hill, then another, steeper, steeper. Pretty soon, my legs feel like logs. Why do you think her legs would feel like logs? Because she's starting to get very tired. Oh, Mr. Biggins, I shout. Mr. Biggins, Grandfather shouts. Mr. Biggins, the mountain echoes back. The snow swirls down in a carousel of sugar and doilies. Icicles hang from the trees like glass ornaments. My breath smokes. Has that ever happened to you outside when it's so cold you breathe out and your breath turns into like smoke in front of you? Puff, puff, puff. A buck leaps across the trail. A raccoon dumps snow on us from the top of a fir tree. Grandfather yanks off his mittens, jams his fingers in his mouth, and whistles so loud for Mr. Biggins that I have to hold my ears. I wonder if you're thinking about who Mr. Biggins is now. He's whistling for him. He grouches at me. Pick up the pace, child. You can't walk like a baby up a mountain. We go up the zigzagging trail Grandfather calls a switchback. It's easier to climb than a straight path because you're going back and forth so it's not so steep. But my feet are tired anyway. Mr. Biggins, Grandfather roars into the wilderness. You're a contemptible mongrel to be pulling this on Christmas Eve. Oh, so what night is it? It's Christmas Eve. I've a mind to leave you to your own devices. But I know Grandfather doesn't mean it. He loves Biggins too much. We climb higher, higher to the clouds. The trees grow smaller, their branches twisting into strange shapes. Grandfather calls this place the Alpine Zone. I yell for Biggins, but the wind swallows up my voice. I can't holler as loud as Grandfather. So have they found Mr. Biggins yet? Not yet. We sit down in a clearing and share a candy bar from the backpack. Grandfather rakes snow out of his beard with his fingers. He stoops down to examine some footprints going up the trail. Those are Biggins' paw prints, all right. Biggins has paw prints, so what do you think he is? He's their dog. That's what I'm thinking. No mistaking a three-legged dog. So Mr. Biggins is a dog, and he's a three-legged dog. I begin to shiver, but I don't dare tell Grandfather. I clamp my mouth tight so my teeth won't chatter. I wish I had a bigger coat. Ho! Hoo! An owl hoots from some rotten tree hole. Last trail marker, Grandfather says near the top of the mountain. Can't go much farther. We climb over a high mound past the fire tower. Grandfather turns around and looks at me. Legs tired? Nope, I lie. We'll make camp. Cook some meat. Biggins will smell it and come running. Then I'll give him a piece of my mind. Okay, Grandfather. We gather wood, make a fire. It's hard to start a fire up here, Grandfather says, because the air is so thin. But he can always get a fire going, even when it's raining. Grandfather cups his hand around his mouth and takes a giant breath. Mr. Biggins, here dog, supper dog. But Mr. Biggins doesn't come. Grandfather empties his pack. He fries venison and melts cheese on it. He makes a hot sandwich and hands it up to me. Then we crush saltines into our steaming cocoa. The meat smell drifts all over the mountain, but Mr. Biggins doesn't come. So what are they doing now? They're eating some supper and they're hoping that who will come? Well, because of the smell of their food. Mr. Biggins, they're saying maybe he'll smell it and it'll smell so good that he'll come running. But does Mr. Biggins come? No, not yet. I hope he arrives. The snow stops drifting down and the clouds clear. Suddenly, stars twinkle from a million places. The sky is a tall one tonight, Grandfather says. Orion, he shouts as he points at a giant in the sky. And that bright red star, Betelgeuse. That blue one, Rigel. I can name 'em all. A curtain of rosy light from the aurora flickers across heaven. Red carpet for St. Nick, that, he says. Mr. Biggins! I wonder who is St. Nick. A red carpet for St. Nick. It's Christmas Eve, so they're talking about Santa Claus. They're saying that's for his sleigh. It's a red carpet for him to head out to give gifts to everybody. We clean up our supper. Then Grandfather looks at me hard. Can't leave without Biggins, you know. We'll have to bivouac. That okay by you? I look around at the deep snow. It's too hard for Biggins to run very far in. He can't make it home by himself, I say. Christmas can wait, Grandfather. Grandfather looks at me, and then he nods. So what did they decide they're going to do? They're going to wait for Mr. Biggins because they're saying it's too deep and too far back to the cabin for him to go by himself. And it wouldn't be Christmas without Mr. Biggins anyway, I say. Grandfather smiles at me. He gathers snow in a pile, and I help pile on more and more snow. Then we hollow out an igloo. It's not a hotel, Grandfather says, but it'll keep us warm till morning. I curl up next to Grandfather. He feels warm and he smells like wood smoke and spice. I hear him whisper something about Mr. Biggins, and then he snores. Lying in the dark, I miss Biggins's claws going ticka 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 across the floor. I listen for barks and panting. I smell the air for stinky fur and breath, but there is only the dark. In the middle of the night, I dream of bells, jingling, jangling, echoing across the sky. Who is that in the picture? It's Santa. I squint up through the roof of the igloo at the stars and see it. The sleigh, the long train of reindeer and Saint Nick, passing over the mountain, then disappearing into a cloud. I'm dreaming, I think, and curl up closer against Grandfather. Merry Christmas, Grandfather, I say in my sleep. Do you think she really saw Santa, Saint Nick? Do you think she was dreaming? I guess we'll never know. I wake up to the smell of bacon frying in a pan. A three-legged mongrel, a brown missile with a jangling collar, leaps on me and laps my nose. Who is it? It's Mr. Biggins. Lost his way and didn't catch the dough. Been eaten like a starved pig, Grandfather says. Come out. Saint Nick brought you something. What is it? Our ride home. A ride home? You think they got a car to come and pick them up on this mountain? Let's find out. I see two runners lashed onto a long plank, a whittling knife in Grandfather's hands, and a pile of wood shavings by his feet. He gives me a wink. A sled. So her ride home is a sled. We finish eating and pack up our mess. Grandfather gets on the sled and back. I get in front. Mr. Biggins squats in the middle and slobbers down my neck. Whoosh! Try that with me. Pretend like your arm is like the sled going down the mountain. It's going to go really fast. Are you ready? Whoosh! Down the mountain trail, past the fire tower, around the gnarly trees, zigzag across the switchback, up over the humpbacks and shoulders, bump, 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 over the moguls, around and down the chute, shh, past the frozen pond, through the old growth forest, galump-a-bump, over the washboard foothouse, and through the meadow to the old log cabin with the sway-backed roof. Me, Grandfather, and Mr. Biggins, safe and home on Christmas Day. I just absolutely love that story. And I don't know about you, friends, but when I got to the part where they found Mr. Biggins, I was so happy. All right, guys, so for my question today, it's not too tricky. I want you to answer for me. What did the grandfather, our characters, our main characters, the grandfather and his granddaughter, what did they go up the mountain to find, and did they find it? I know that if you were listening and doing a good job paying attention, that you will be able to answer that no problem at all. Why did they climb the mountain? What were they looking for? And did they find it? All right, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this one. Bye.